flip or two.
Hey guys, thank you for tuning in. This is going to be a pretty cool video. I'm really excited about this game, and I've gotten a little bit of time to dive into it and kind of enjoy it so far, and I'm really loving it. So I really wanted to kind of give you guys a breakdown of what we're going to be seeing in the character creation for Biomutant. So let's go ahead and jump into it. What you're going to see kind of starting off here is you're going to be selecting your breed. So your breeds are going to dictate a lot of things when it comes to your actual in-game gameplay as your character. And each breed is going to be fairly unique and dictate what classes you might pick and things of that nature and how you might actually build your character. So starting off, I mean, you're going to see the primal breed here. And from what I understand about the primal breed is that this is kind of the one that's showcased in all the trailers, but they're a little bit more less balanced than some of the other breeds. When you come into like things like the Dum-Don that you're seeing right here, you're gonna see that these are gonna be a little bit more of a physical build kind of character. Okay, something that you're gonna want to build a melee class around. This is going to be the type of character that you're going to be up in their face dealing damage as opposed to range. It's going to be a lot more focused on your melee here. And like I said, I mean, each character is going to be dictating kind of what you do. So, I mean, you take a look at the Rex class here, and they are a little bit more balanced when it comes to the intellect that they have and also like their vitality. So they're going to be a little bit smarter, so it's going to be easier to develop like magic and things like that, but they're also going to have a little bit more health than your typical class that you're going to be seeing. So, and I think that this would probably be a good build for things like psionics if you're looking to do more of a magic style character, or like a mage, I suppose. That's kind of where you're going to be looking at for this, because it's going to be really balanced. And forgive me if I butcher the name, but the Hyla here is going to be an interesting one as well. So they're going to be built a little bit more towards having more armor, a little bit more strength. They're not going to have as much intellect, so they're not going to be as great for doing magic and things like that. This is going to be another kind of up in your face sort of build. I mean, more tanky is kind of how I would put that. As opposed to being as much damage dealing, they're going to be more resilient, and they're going to be harder to kill more than anything, is what I would say. So if you're looking for a more tanky build and you don't want your character dying all the time, and you're okay with dealing normal amounts of damage, not really using as much magic, I mean, this is going to be probably the way to go. In terms of like a tank build, if you're an MMO player. If not, it just means that you're beefy, meat tank. If you take a look at the FIP here, you're going to see that this class, they're definitely not going to have as much vitality. They're not going to have as much strength. So, I mean, they're going to be easier to kill. They're not going to deal as much melee damage, but they're going to have more intellect. So you can kind of pour that a little bit more into like your magic and things like that, like we had kind of talked about earlier with some of the other breeds. So, and this one, I mean, it's definitely pretty cool. I would say that it's going to be less balanced than some of the other classes if you're looking to build kind of a magic type character, but I still think it's a pretty cool option to be able to take if you want more of a challenge for your magic character, more like a glass cannon, so to speak, is kind of how I would see this character. And then once we go ahead and we branch off, we're going to take a look at the Mergle here as well, which is going to be the class that I actually wound up going with because they seem like a lot of fun. They're very, very balanced. Now, this character is not going to have as much intellect, so they're not going to be as good at magic, but you can kind of, adjust things here and there going forward depending on how you want your character to be set up. But I wound up going with this breed just because they have a really good balance of vitality and strength, and they also have a bonus in luck, which is kind of interesting, as well as their charisma is pretty balanced as well. But the luck actually is going to govern what kind of loot drops you get and things of that nature. So, if you get like a good weapon off of a guy that you kill or something like that, that's going to be dictated by the luck stat. So I thought that would be really helpful in my gameplay, because I'm the kind of guy who likes to get good gear, make my character nice and well built so I can just kind of blast through the enemies and things like that. So, but yeah, I mean, I definitely think that this is kind of the go-to class, so to speak, if you're looking for some really balanced gameplay. And from what I've done so far, I've definitely been enjoying it. So I would absolutely recommend this class personally, if you're looking for a more balanced build. If not, I mean, if you're the more up in your face kind of tanky person, maybe you want to look into something like the Dum-Don. But yeah, anyways, so going forward, what we're going to be seeing here is the mutation system. So this is where Biomutant has a very unique system in terms of how you are going to kind of allocate your stats for your character. So as you can see here, there's this little drag and drop wheel, and when you lean it more towards one thing, it changes the physical appearance of your character. But if you notice by looking on the right side, it's also dictating the stats. So if you lean more into agility, it's going to make him more thin. If you go into intelligence, you can see he's got a big head and it makes him kind of more adorable. But that's the cool thing about the races when it comes into balancing your character, is that you can still go one way or another, depending on what you have, and you might have a little bit higher base stats in one section than the other. But you'll see here, I mean, when it comes to like vitality, I mean, it makes them kind of bigger, like your ideal meat tank, like what you imagine when you're thinking of a tank, as to where you kind of balance it more. In the middle, you're going to get a more balanced looking character that's not really necessarily beefy in one way or another, and it's going to kind of balance out the stats a little bit, as you can see on the side. Taking a look at it, I mean, you're going to see that this is going to be a huge role in your gameplay throughout Biomutant. This is going to dictate kind of how you play the game, and not only that, but the funny, fuzzy little character that you're playing when you're running around. This is also going to dictate how they look. So you definitely have to choose wisely. This is a game where it really does kind of make you choose in the beginning between the aesthetics and the actual stats of the character and the overall gameplay and how you want to play the game. So I mean, it can be a hard decision, and hey, maybe you decide to kind of meet somewhere in the middle and it happens to balance out for you. But you really do have to consider that when you're making your character in this game, is that aesthetically looking and stat wise, they're going to be moderately hand in hand when you're building your character. And I just kind of found it interesting how they implied this, because I mean, you take a look at this strength here, and you've got the ideal like knight kind of build here. He's got the big bulky shoulders, kind of bigger head, a little bit taller, and that's going to be your strength build. That's your melee damage. But then you mix it kind of between vitality and strength, then you get a little bit more tanky, stronger character. So I mean, I definitely think that this is something that you should really consider and take your time with. I mean, as you can see by the genetic code down at the bottom, that's just constantly changing, almost like matrix letters. There is thousands of different combinations in how you can actually have your stats built and how it's going to affect how your character looks. So I would definitely recommend, highly considering that when you're going into building your character. And also, not to mention, I mean, there's also a class system in this game, so you're definitely kind of gonna take a look at the classes and see what's gonna suit the character best. In this section, you're going to be choosing your resistances. Now, this isn't as big of a deal as a lot of the other parts of the character creation, especially when it comes to like dictating your stats. This is mainly going to be the things that you're predominantly resistant to in the game, so you'll take less damage from said thing when you have those resistances. Now, something to be noted is that later in the game, you'll actually get points from encountering things of that element that allow you to stat them into your character and gain more resistance. So this is really just what you think that you're going to want to be resistant to initially. But like I said, I mean, it's not going to make a huge difference in the overall gameplay for what you choose right here in this moment. And gaining those resistances later in the game, it's more or less relatively cheap in terms of the points that you spend for those resistances versus how much resistance you actually get. You actually get a pretty fair amount of resistance versus, the amount of points that you're spending and how much you have to do to earn them. So I wouldn't really focus on this too much. This part, really, this is just going to be customizing your fur pattern. So this is just strictly aesthetic for your character. This is going to have nothing to do with your stats. This is just going to be strictly aesthetic. So, you can definitely go ahead and enjoy this, fiddle around with it. There's a lot of different options. The one I wind up settling with is actually a very, it very much so looks like Kratos from God of War, because I'm a huge God of War fan. If you haven't played the newest God of War that's out, you definitely should for the PS4. And I believe they're going to be doing a PS5 update soon. But anyways, we're talking about Biomutant right now. So, if you take a look here, I'm just kind of cycling through a lot of the different ones that are available. That's the one that I went with right there. And yeah, this is, like I said, strictly aesthetic in this case. So just kind of go ahead and pick what you like and, and put it in there. That's going to be based on your preference for your character. Going into the next section, we're going to be looking at the primary fur color. Again, this is going to be something that is strictly aesthetic. It's not really going to have anything to do with any stats or anything like that. This one is kind of cool, though, because you have a huge color range of options. And as you can see, what this is mainly changing is like the pattern that you just applied, as opposed to the base fur color, which for this character type starts off as like white. So, but yeah, if you take a look into it, there's so many different color options. You can really customize your character to make them have a color scheme that fits you, that you like. And then yeah, that's pretty much it there for that section. You're really just choosing the color scheme for the fur pattern that you applied. Going forward, it's going to be the secondary. It's really going to be the same thing here as the last section. We're just going to be looking at the primary, or well, I would call it the primary color, even though they call it the secondary color, because this is the main color of your character. And you can adjust all the colors. You've got that same huge color range to do whatever you want with your character. And then you've also got the light and dark, so you can kind of pick what you want, and then you can drag this little wheel on the side here and kind of darken it. So if you want him to be a darker color or lighter color, that's going to be completely up to you. But yeah, I think that this is a really cool aspect here in Biomutant. And then, of course, the last thing that we're going to be covering here for the Biomutant character creation is going to be the most important, if not the second most important part of creating your character in Biomutant. So what we're going to be looking at here is choosing your class. So like I had mentioned earlier, what we had seen was the abilities being kind of drag and dropped so that you got different things like vitality, strength, intellect, agility, charisma, and luck. So at this point, this is where you're going to be choosing how you're going to apply those. So, the primary class here that it starts off with is Deadeye, which is actually the class I wound up playing at first, and then I wound up going back and switching. Deadeye is pretty cool. It starts off with, a revolver and a big sword, or a great sword, so to speak. And it's a pretty well-balanced class, but I didn't really like it as much because it was very focused on the gun as opposed to the sword. So then you take a look into the Commando. This is a very neat breed. They're going to be very, very, very gun-focused. So this class, when you're starting off, I mean, you're going to be starting off with some pretty lightweight armor. I mean, as you can tell by looking at your character, they look very Rambo-ish, and I mean, that is very much so what this class is going to be. I mean, this is going to be run and gun, you know, deal big damage with big guns, and things of that nature. It's not really going to be a melee-based class. This isn't going to be an up-in-your-face, you know, slash them up, you know, hack and slash them. It's going to be very much so third-person shooter style, which I could still see being very fun in Biomutant just because of the fast-paced combat and how the game works. I mean, it's really fun. But yeah, this is going to be definitely your third-person kind of shooter class that you would play. Very kung fu run and gun style. The Psi Freak, this is kind of what I mentioned earlier when it comes to like tuning your intellect. The Psi Freak is going to be a very magic based sort of class. So as you can see there, I mean, they've got the Spark Ball ability, which is basically you can throw spark balls at people. They're little magic bolts, and then they also come with the Megamind perk, which is causing you to regain your key energy faster, and your key energy is what you use to basically use magic. So I mean, this is a really cool class if you're a very like mage type player. If you really like the magic classes, this is probably where you're gonna want to lean towards. And I could see this being a whole lot of fun. I actually on the class that I'm playing right now, I have some magic abilities alongside like my greatsword and my guns. I have a very balanced thing when it comes to this game, but you have those options in this game. Honestly, you can do a lot with your character going forward. The Saboteur, or as it's referred to online as in a lot of cases, is the mercenary class. This is actually the one that I wound up going with. It allows you to dual wield swords, which is a pretty cool idea. It makes the melee gameplay very, very fast paced. This is a very up-in-your-face melee class. This is the hack and slash class, so to speak. I mean, as you can see, his primary ability is the Twin Silver Grip, which allows you to dual-wield one-handed weapons. And then you've got Hypergenetic, which is your dodge energy cost is reduced by 20%. So it doesn't cost as much energy for you to dodge things. So this is very like agility based, speed, hack and slash, you know, you're just very up in their face. But of course you also do have a gun that you can use, which is still a very powerful tool. And in using this build, I have actually, you know, customized in magic and guns and things like that. And actually I use a big sword rather than the two single-handed swords, which makes it a lot more fast-paced and fun. And your Sentinel class, I mean, this is going to be where you're looking at your beefy tank kind of character. This is going to be the sort of character that is just straight up brawn. He's going to be the one who's able to take a beating and also deliver a beating. This is another melee class that's very up in your face. You know, hack and slash type of character build, but it's just going to be a little bit slower combat because you're using a bigger sword, as opposed to the mercenary, which was a very fast-paced style. But yeah, I mean, and I mean, he has the toughness perk, which increases your armor base by 10, which is awesome. But yeah, I mean, that's about it for character customization for Biomutant. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content. All right. Peace.
Ripper 2.